and get your laptop going so you can check TikTok. Yeah, of course. Do what you got to do. Actually, I've got a better chair. Yeah, hang on. Take this one. Okay, we're live on TikTok. I'm not seeing it move here. I hear it, but I don't see the camera moving. I'm not seeing it move here. Okay, we're good. I hear it, but I don't see the camera move. Bear with us if you're watching because we're just getting this rolling. And it's the first time we've done it. So going live on 5 different channels. So bear with us. Okay, we're good. Bear with us if you're watching because we're just getting this rolling. And it's the first time we've done it. So going live on 5 different channels. So bear with us.
So what I'll do is I'll mute it on that. That way you won't keep hearing it back.
Oh, yeah.
So watching.
Okay, good.
Okay, so
Yeah, start it.
boom, boom.
Okay. Now we weren't turning lights on, right? Okay. We're gonna get rocking. We ready to get rocking? Ready to go? All right. When I'm ready to have you, you go here, you need this. And I'll let you know when I'm ready to write by, I don't know, I'll go like that, okay? With my hand. You just got to watch me too. Okay. Okay. Well, welcome. Let me ask you a question. What would it mean for you and your family if you could build something that creates income, passive income every month, whether you're working or not? Think about that. Maybe you're in a W-2 job. Maybe you love the job. Maybe you're comfortable. And that comfort zone's a nice warm place, and we all know nothing freaking grows there, right? So think about what it would mean if you had cash flow coming in every single month. I've seen my students do it time and time again where their passive income from their real estate exceeds their W-2 income, and then you've got exceeds their expenses, and then you've got true financial freedom. And that's what you get from multifamily real estate. I'm going to tell you, it's one of the most proven, predictable wealth building vehicles that there is. And it creates income while you're building literally generational security for you, your kids, their kids. I mean, literally for decades, you're building a legacy. And that's what makes it so freaking exciting. And I got to tell you, I think we could be in one of the greatest opportunities I see in my lifetime because there are a lot of operators that got in trouble from the from the interest rate going up. And so there's a lot of opportunity. I'll give you an example. There's a San Antonio deal we've got. It's an asset. We call them assets. And by the way, I'm going to spend probably close to 3 hours today teaching you multifamily. Okay, so buckle up, get something to write some notes on, I think you're going to get a tremendous amount of value today if you hang with me. And I've got an incredible offer for you as well if you hang with me. But that's what we're going to do today, and we're going to talk about making money in multifamily. We're going to talk about finding deals in multifamily, how you build your team. And evaluating deals and so on and so forth. We're just going to spend a lot of time on this today. It's going to be a lot of fun. So, see, most people rely on a job or maybe even the stock market or a retirement account, and these things rise and fall with the economy. They're volatile, they're crazy volatile. And so, what they don't have is something steady, and something tangible you can actually see, something that can, weather the market. And like I said, there's incredible opportunity right now because a lot of operators that got into this business in 21 and 22, got this adjustable rate debt, and now they're struggling with it. And so, like I say, we've got an asset in San Antonio. It's 200 units on a lake. and the property right next door sold for 43 million a few years ago. The bank now owns it's down to 28 million, okay? We're not even going to look at it unless it gets to 24 million. So from 43 to 24, that's what's happening right now. So there are exponential deals happening right now. And so there couldn't be a better time to get in and learn this business. And so, and multifamily properties have proven to traditionally be incredibly stable. People have to have a place to live. When COVID happened, the government didn't help retail, shopping centers. The government didn't help office buildings. The government didn't help other asset classes, but multifamily, we got hundreds of thousands of dollars in rent relief for our tenants because people have to have a freaking place to live, and when you invest in multifamily properties, you're tapping into multiple streams of income, okay, and all underneath one roof. And even if one tenant leaves, or in some cases 10 to 20 tenants leave, the buildings, the asset still makes money. And that's one of the benefits of investing in multifamily. Now, if you don't know my story, I've owned over 2,000 houses that I've rented long-term. 2,000 in 3 states. And in 2008, I lost $50 million, and it was the houses that pulled me down. So I started a podcast 10 years ago, and I started it because what I discovered in that crash when I lost $50 million is it was the houses that pulled me down. I had 800 houses along the Gulf Coast of Florida and I had multiple apartment complexes. And again, it was the houses that pulled me down. My apartment complexes would have survived, but me thinking I was brilliant to save some interest, some points in interest, I combined packages of houses with my multifamily. So I lost it all. But what I discovered was if I hadn't done that, I'd still own that multifamily because it pulled back about 11%, but it would have survived. And so I started my podcast to tell people, if you're going to buy and hold real estate, for God's sakes, do freaking multifamily, don't do single family. Ask me how I know, right? And so, I get in debates all the time with single family operators where we debate what's better, single family or multifamily. And I'm going to tell you, most people start with single family, and that's fine. The key is to get started, okay? But almost everybody escalates themselves to multifamily ultimately. Why? Because, it's easier to buy a 20 unit than it is to buy 20 houses. And candidly, it's usually easier as well. And so I'm going to get into a lot of that today with you guys. But multifamily creates stability, true stability, that single family homes and other types of investments just can't match. And here's the other thing. Inflation's not going away, okay? And these properties are valued on a multiple of the net income. It's called the NOI, the net operating income. And so let me show you something. Okay, so NOI is basically the income from all sources minus expenses, okay? That's NOI, okay? And that does not include debt, okay? But so it's income from all sources. So why is that important? Because any increase to that net income is an exponential increase to the value. I'll give you an example of this. So actually, let's go back to the whiteboard. So I've got a property, 296 unit property in San Antonio, okay? And we said, hey, you can have your own parking space. We numbered the parking spaces, okay? So you can have your own parking space, and it costs you $25 a month, okay? And you can park right in front of your unit. We'll put a reserve sign on it. We had 100 people take that, okay? 100 people took it. We said first come, first serve. So $25 times 100 is what we created in income. Now, this is what's going to blow your mind, okay? So that's basically $2,500 a month, right? But then what you do is you annualize it. Times 12 equals 30K. All right? These are real numbers. Now, the way and that's a 30K increase to that NOI, okay? 30K plus to NOI. So that's a $30,000 increase to the net operating income. The way the multifamily real estate is valued is based on a multiple of the income, and it's called the cap rate, the capitalization rate. And back then, this property was being traded. It's called traded when they sell at a 4 cap, okay, 4%. Divide 30K by 4% and tell me what you get. I'll tell you what it is. Hang on, I'm not used to this monitor yet. It's 750K in freaking value increase from some paint on the parking lot. We didn't pay for the paint. We had a paving company pay for the freaking paint. So we got almost $1 million freaking increase in this property because we did the parking spot. All right, well, let's get into it. So let's talk about the ways to make money in multifamily. We're going to talk about the ways to make freaking money in multifamily. Yeah, baby. Okay. So the first thing is cash flow. Hello. That's the reason the name of my podcast is called Lifetime Cash Flow, because that's what you're creating is lifetime cash flow. You know, there's a reason that 90% of the world's millionaires either made it in real estate or invest their money in real estate. It's because of depreciation and tax benefits. You know, I don't pay taxes, and I'm proud to say that. It's not like I'm skirting anything. It's the way the tax laws are written to stimulate property ownership. That's the reason Trump didn't want his tax returns shown, because he doesn't pay taxes either legally, okay? So the tax benefits are extraordinary. Things that you don't think about when you own properties, the principal reduction. You know, it's that surprise you get after 5-10 years of owning the property, like, holy crap, I paid down that loan quite a bit. Of course, you get appreciation. Now, again, in multifamily, you can force that appreciation the way I just showed you with that parking lot example, okay? You get acquisition fees when you purchase a property and when you put a deal together. If you're the operator that puts it together and you pool the money to buy an apartment, by the way, every apartment complex you see, it's not like one wealthy guy that owns it, okay? It's a pool of a whole bunch of people that pool their money together in what's called a syndication, okay? And you as my students, just so you know, my warriors, my coaching students now own, I believe, upwards of 300,000 units under my teaching, okay? We're over 272,000, we're counting, and I'm certain we're closer to 300,000, okay? But we have a count of that already. And so my point is, all those units were bought by pooling money together, okay? And the person that puts it all together charges an acquisition fee because it's a lot of work to put it together. And these, I can tell you, acquisition fees range anywhere from 3 to 5%. And so let's say, you know, a small multifamily property would be $3 million. I know that might sound intimidating to you if you've never done a deal, but trust me, that's a small deal. My last deal was, what was it, 20 million, okay? I mean, and you'll say, okay, well, that's you, Rod. Well, students as well, those size units. And the acquisition fee, even on a $3 million deal at 5%, what is that, $150,000? One acquisition fee can change your life, okay? So you get acquisition fees. You can also charge what's called asset management fees. You know, when you buy one of these properties, you're going to likely hire a third-party property management company, but you got to manage them, and that's called asset management. And typically, we charge 2% asset management fee, and it's 2% of the gross collected rents. Okay, so that's asset management fee. If you're going to manage it yourself, you can charge property management fees. But this is why this business is so freaking awesome. There's tons of ways to make money. And by the way, this business is a team sport. You don't have to know it all, okay? I can tell you there's lots of different hats you can wear. You can be the person that finds the deals. You can be the person that evaluates those deals. Maybe you're analytical. You could be the mouthpiece like me that builds the relationships with the investors and the sellers and the brokers, okay? Maybe you've got some construction experience or some project management experience or some really management experience of any kind. You could do the asset management. So there's lots of different hats you can wear. But remember, you're not going to do it all. You know, I bought those houses pretty much by myself. I had my brothers involved and I had employees. But you don't buy apartment complexes by yourself. And that's why it's so exciting. And that's why you want to get around people that are doing this, okay? Because it is a team sport. I'm going to talk about that more later. Okay. Let's see. Okay. So here's the thing about multifamily as well. Why it's nicer than buying houses. Because let's say you want $20,000 a month in income, okay? Basically, the average net income on a multifamily property, if you take the whole country and average it out, it's about $200 per unit per month, okay? So basically $2,400 per year per unit. So you'd basically need 100 units by yourself to achieve that goal. Now, if you bring in partners or you syndicate, then you're going to have to do more than that. But the point is, you can get your goals much, much faster than buying one house at a freaking time. Ask me how I know. By the way, at my live events, one of my students, I say, ask me how I know all the time, because I've made every freaking mistake you can make in the book. So I'm like, don't do that. Ask me how I know. One of my students, Eric, got me a shirt that says hashtag ask me how I know. So you'll hear me say that a lot. Okay. All right. Now, let's talk about the high-level multifamily investing process. Now, please realize this is high level and this is not necessarily sequential, but I want to kind of give you an overview of what this looks like. And so the first thing you've got to do is decide on a market. We're going to talk about that today, how to pick a market. Then you've got to decide who's going to be on your team. And that's one of the advantages of getting in a group like my Warrior Coaching Program is there's lots of teams in there. But you can go to your local meetup group. You can find people that are doing this and see if you can work with them, see if you can get involved with them. And here's the reason this is important. You're not going to go buy a 100-unit apartment complex by yourself as your first deal. But if you align with a group that's already done it and say, hey, if I bring you a deal, can we partner on this thing? Then what you can do when you go talk to people, when you go talk to brokers, when you go talk to sellers, when you go talk to investors, you can use the we word. You can say, we own 300 units or 1,000 units or whatever it is in that group that you're aligning with, okay? Use the we word. But you got to either put a team together or you join a team. Now I'm going to tell you the fastest way to join a team that's already doing this is to either find a deal or raise money for a deal, okay? And we're going to talk about that today, okay? So you got to put a team together. You got to find private money for your deals. Private money could be, a loan. It could be friends and family equity that you're raising for these deals. So you got to find the money. You've got to evaluate deals. Stick with me. I'm going to tell you how you can get my deal evaluator software today for less than the price of a lunch. I'm going to give you an offer today, which is basically about, I don't know, $12,000 to $13,000 worth of stuff for $47. Okay, so there's no excuses, and it includes my 2-day boot camp. So where I don't sell anything. So there's no excuses. If you really want to learn this, stay with me, okay? All right. So you got to evaluate deals. You got to make offers. Obviously, you don't make an offer, you're never going to get anything. Then you got to negotiate the deal. You'll sign a contract ultimately, and you'll contact, equity investors. By the way, in our business, equity is the amount of money out of pocket that's going into a deal. Okay, there's obviously the debt, and then there's equity. Now, I know in single family, you think equity, you think, okay, I have a $100,000 house here. Let me show you real quick on equity. So let's say you've got a house that's valued at 100K and you owe 50K. So you have 50K in equity, right? So in our world, so this is this is a single family example. In our world, equity is basically the amount of money out of pocket. So let's say you're buying a property for $10 million and you're getting a loan of $7 million. The $3 million would be the equity. That's what it's called. So it's a little confusing if you're used to the single family definition of equity. So you're going to raise the equity. You're going to hire an attorney to prepare your documents for either a syndication or a joint venture. We'll talk about that more later, the two things. Well, I'll just tell you real quick. A syndication is where you raise money from people that aren't actively involved, okay? That's a syndication. You have to contact the SEC and do a syndication. By the way, you can check for questions whenever you can too. Oh, you are on all of them? Okay, good. All right. If you got a question, feel free to ask, and he'll interrupt me and I'll answer it as we go here. Okay. But you'll have an attorney prepare your syndication or joint venture. Syndication is if there are people that aren't actively involved. Joint venture, everyone has to be actively involved. Okay. And I'm not sure if I dig into that today or if I do that on next Saturday's session, but I'm going to teach syndication and joint venture. Then you've got to get the documents from the seller when you're doing your due diligence. Once you're under contract, you're going to say, hey, seller, give me all this stuff that I need to review while I'm evaluating the property, which is called due diligence, right? You're going to contact a lender. Then you're going to do your on-site inspections. You're going to check all the units. You're going to check the leases. You're going to check the contracts. Basically, it's called due diligence. You're going to check the thing out, right? You're going to get a term sheet from the lender and you're going to close. Hallelujah. It's a beautiful thing. So that's kind of a high level overview of the process, okay? So one of the first things you have to do when you're going to get into this business is you've got to establish what's called your investment criteria. You know, you can't be all things to all people, okay? You have to decide where you're going to buy, what size property you're going to buy, you know, what asset class. So asset classes, and we're going to talk about this today. You know, there's A, B, C, and D. A is the brand new stuff. D is the hood. Stay out of the hood. We'll talk about that more later. But you're going to establish your criteria because there's, I don't know, I think there's upwards of 3 million multifamily properties. And if you go to an investor or a lender or a broker or a seller, I need to tighten this thing up. Hang on one second because I keep leaning on it and it keeps screwing me up. Yeah, I don't know. Oh, there it is right there. Good. If you go to one of those people and you say, yeah, or a broker, for example, I'm just looking for a deal. I don't care if it's, you know, where it is, what size it is. They're going to laugh at you. Okay. You need to have some criteria as to exactly what you're looking at. You know, I'm looking at, you know, 50 to 60 units in this particular geographic area, this submarket. You know, I'm looking for B assets in A areas and C assets in B areas. And that's what I'm looking for. That's investment criteria.
We got a question from Chris.
Okay, question from Chris.
What's the best way to source a deal or best way to add value to these people we want to get in front of?
Okay, so what's the best way to source a deal and what's the best way to add value to people we want to get in front of? I'm gonna spend most of today talking about finding deals, Chris, so hang with me, okay? There are lots of different strategies for finding deals. That's the biggest piece of today's presentation, but it could be in an hour or so hang with me. As far as adding value, you know, if you're adding value to people you're getting to invest in the deal, what you do is you create what's called a pro forma, and you show them the sort of returns they can expect based on what you anticipate for that deal. And I won't be doing that today. I'll do that probably next Saturday or the Saturday after, but I'll teach you how to do a pro forma and what needs to be in it, okay? So establishing your investment criteria. So investment criteria should include, like I said, the size property, okay? You know, don't say I'm going to go buy 1,000 unit property as your first deal, okay? Let's be serious, okay? So you got to decide what size you're going to go after. You know, what's the class? Remember we talk about class, A, B, C, and D class. You know, is it stabilized or a value add? So stabilized would be an asset that it's called a yield play. This is the kind of stuff Grant Cardone does. He buys newer stuff and it's stabilized, okay? And so he's just banking on the rents to go up. I like to buy value add, where through my efforts I can raise the rents, okay? And that's called value add. And so that's the kind of stuff we like to buy, where we can force appreciation through our efforts. Then you got to decide where. What's the location going to be? Where are you going to buy, right? The type of area and the price range. So these are all things that are going to be in your investment criteria. All right. All right, next. And here's why you need it, because it gives you credibility. Okay. You know, then brokers will take you seriously. And if you DM me on any social channel, I can email you our investment criteria, okay? I don't have it right now, but I'll email it to you so you can get an idea what it looks like. But it gives you credibility with brokers, credibility with sellers, credibility with investors, you know, and it helps you stay focused, okay? Focus is power. You know, if you try to look at everything, it's overwhelming. You can't do that. You want to become an expert in the market you're interested in, okay? That's how this is done. So, you know, that's why you've got to have your investment criteria. Now, other things you want to think about when you're establishing your investment criteria is, you know, how you're going to manage the property. Are you going to use a third property management company? You know, or are you going to manage it yourself? We're going to talk about all those things today. Can you lock these wheels for me? I don't know if you can reach down and lock them. Thanks, because I keep rolling all over the place. What sort of loans are available? You know, for the property. And you know, we've got a lender that I recommend you talk to. He's actually a broker, a loan broker that all my students use. That, you know, you don't have to be an expert at loans. What you have to be is is have someone that can help you decide what the best loan is for a property. Okay, and that's typically a loan broker, not even a lender. It would be a loan broker because they can go to banks, Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, credit unions, life insurance companies, all that, and pick the best loan for whatever HUD, whatever property you're going after. And then your personal resources. Do you have any money? By the way, guys, yes, these deals take money, but it doesn't have to be your own money. Okay, you can. My students have raised hundreds of millions of dollars for these deals. I know that sounds intimidating, but it's not. It's just building relationships. That's it. Okay, so so what resources do you have? What skills do you have? What background do you have? Are there any things that you've done in the past that help? And I promise you, you've got a superpower that will help with this. If it's sales, if it's, whatever it is. And then, where are you going to target? Where you go, how far is it from where you live? Are you going to do another state? By the way, you can invest in other states. You don't have to invest in your state. I've got assets in 7 states, okay? Now, I do recommend that you stay geographically specific. I would not recommend you do what my partner did with me in the past. We just went all over the place. We shouldn't have done that. The most successful operators I see stick with one market, and you should do the same thing, okay? Now, as you're creating your investment criteria, you got to do a self-evaluation. So, how many hours do you work a week? How much time can you devote to this? Okay, very important. Now, you can do this with a full-time job, with kids, with sports, with church, all of that. I've seen numerous of my warriors, my coaching students do it. But you've got to look at that. What's your current financial status? Again, you don't have to have a lot of money to do this. You're going to raise the money, but you still have to be able to support yourself and so on and so forth. What's your employment status? People ask me sometimes, should I quit my job? My answer is always no. Should I quit my job and do this full time is what they ask me. I say no, unless you've got a nest egg or unless you've got, maybe you're retired military, you've got income coming in. Otherwise, no. Why? Because it might take you 4 months, 6 months, 8 months, sometimes even a year to get your first big deal. And if you don't have income, you're going to have fear, and fear will paralyze you. Okay. So what's your employment status? And what sort of real estate experience do you have? Even if it's just buying your single family residence, what have you got, right? Also, what's your risk tolerance? Are you a conservative person? Are you an aggressive person? What is your risk tolerance? Is there no lock on these wheels? Okay. All right. I thought there was. Oh, nope, there sure isn't. Okay. We'll deal with it. All right. So, what is your risk tolerance? And I'm going to tell you, we all have this courage muscle, right? And I see it with my students all the time. It's the law of the first deal. That first deal, it's the scariest. It takes the longest. It takes the most time. And they're complaining, oh my God, it's been 6 months. I'm kicking them in the ass. Come on, you got this. Keep doing it. Keep making the calls. Keep doing the work. And then they get one. And the next thing I know, they have 3. I'm like, what the hell just happened? What they do is they realize it's all between their ears, right? And so, you got to figure out what's your risk tolerance. And most people will start smaller and then move into larger. It's just the natural way. I interview people on my podcast. And I don't know if you listen to my podcast. I host the largest commercial real estate podcast really in the world at this point. And I've interviewed the largest multifamily operators in the world as well. People with 10,000 units, 20,000 units. And very often I'll ask the question, what would you do if you told 18-year-old self knowing what you know now? And because I know what the answer is going to be. And I don't want you to hear it from me. I want you to hear it from them. And it's always go bigger, faster. Okay. But the key is you got to get started. Now, when you get into this business, you've got to lose your employee mindset. You got to take off your employee hat and put on your entrepreneur hat. Okay. And as an entrepreneur, you don't quit. It's not a 9-to-5 thing. You quit when you're done. Okay. Period. Okay. And you need to remember that multifamily is primarily empirical. It's primarily numbers. You get the numbers right and you ask all the right questions, it's pretty hard to make a big mistake. Now, so it's much less subjective than you might think. It's pretty rational, objective, and empirical. Okay. Now, other parts of this is how's your credit? What's your net worth? Do you have any net worth? Now, here's the thing to remember though. Your net worth and your income are pretty much irrelevant to a lender in the multifamily space. They're going to look at the property's ability to service the debt. And so, um, they want to make sure the property can cover the debt if they end up having to take it back, and that's what they look at. Okay. Do you have any investment capital? Do you have any potential investors that will invest with you, friends, family, whatever? And do you have a mentor or coach to help guide you? Of course, that's what I do, but there are other people out there. You can go to your local, like I say, real estate club meetings, investor club meetings, meet people that do this. Um, if you're interested in learning from me, I do a boot camp pretty much every month and a half, a virtual boot camp. I tell you how you can come for 47 bucks and $12,000 in bonuses. So no excuses. But anyway, so what type and size of multifamily are you going to target? Okay, this is super important. So let's get into it. Okay, this is part of the investment criteria. So properties are designated through, are broken up by size and by class. Okay, so obviously, let's start with size. Okay, so there's residential multifamily and there's commercial multifamily. Now, residential multifamily is a duplex, a triplex, or a fourplex, or if you're up in the Northeast, they call them two family, three family, four family. But that's residential multifamily. And there's some real advantages to residential multifamily. First of all, it's less zeros, so it's less scary, right? And it's easier to start smaller because it's that courage muscle, right? If you make a mistake, it's less zeros. Also, the biggest thing is it's residential lending. If you move in, you can get as low as a 3% down payment. You're going to get lower interest rates, and those interest rates are over the whole period of the loan, 30 years, 40 years in some cases. So you're getting a long-term, fully amortized loan, which is really desirable. So that's really nice. My daughter just bought a triplex, a 3-unit up in Tampa. Oh, it's a piece of shit. Oh my God, it's a piece of shit. And my maintenance guy's been up there, living up there practically. But I'm really proud of her because it's in a really good area. It's a gentrifying area. She's gonna make a lot of money with it. She's living in one of the units. She's renting out the other ones. It's called house hacking. And it's about damn time. She's my daughter and she's finally bought her first property. But anyway, yeah, my maintenance guy will be up there again Monday to help her because she's finally got tenants. But anyway, so that's start with a with a 2 to 4 if you want. Okay. But here's the challenges, okay? It's more management intensive. You're not going to get good property management companies for these smaller residential multifamilies. The management companies are typically a broker that's doing it on the side, and they usually are not that good. It can be more competitive. You can only get so many properties with Fannie Mae if you're going to do these properties, and it's harder to get economies of scale, but the big reason is you can't ramp the value. With a residential multifamily, the values are based on a multiple of the net income. Okay, it's called the NOI, the net operating income, and you can't with residential. I'm sorry, forget everything I just said. With residential, the values are based on comparable sales. Okay, and you can't dictate what other properties sell for, so you have no control over the value. With commercial multifamily, it's based on the net income. Sorry, I hadn't had enough coffee yet. But anyway, so the challenge with a 2 to 4 unit is you can't ramp the value. Okay, that's the big one. Okay, you can't force appreciation. Now, here's the bell of the ball: 5 units and up. 5 units and up is commercial multifamily. And again, the value is based on, let's get a mat for this thing so it doesn't roll next time. But the value is based on, in fact, there's one in the bathroom. Can you grab it and just bring it in here? And the big one all the way in the bathroom there. Anyway, the value is based on the NOI. And it's that net income I talked about, 5 units and up, and you can ramp that through your efforts, right? So you get economies of scale. You can outsource the property management, the day-to-day operations, and you can very often hire on-site management. Okay, let's pull it over a little closer. Here we go. Sorry, guys, this is the first time I'm doing this, and we're working through some of the logistics here so that it's I can get through 3 hours of this. Much better. Thank you, buddy. And so, yeah, so that's why we like commercial multifamily. Okay. Now, all right. So, any questions?
Yes, we have someone who asks on TikTok. Jasmine, she says, "Is your email mentioned in your profile, or can you share it here?"
Is my email mentioned? No, I'll share my email, Jasmine. My email is rod@rodkhleif.com. Rod@rod, Khleif as in Frank.com. And if you go to Rod's links, Rod's plural, links plural.com, that's my link tree. All my social media is there. I pretty much answer every question there as well. My bootcamp site is there, but don't sign up for the bootcamp there because you don't get the bonuses. I've got a ton of bonuses today. And then my goal setting workshop is there too. It's the first of the year. Have you done your freaking goals? I would ask you, have you done your goals? It's time to do your goals, okay? How do you get anything if you don't know what it is? You've got to do your goal setting. And my goal setting workshops there at Rod's links. There's a guide you can download. You know, have your spouse do it. You do it. Have your kid, if they're over 10 years old, do it. People spend more time planning a freaking Christmas party than they do designing their lives. Doing your goals is designing your life, and that's all at rodslinks.com. Okay? Yeah, do your goals. So now let's talk about building your team. Okay? Now you're going to have an inside team and an outside team, and I'll tell you what I mean by that. Okay? Outside team would be your property management company. Okay? And you know, property management company, you want to make sure that that property management company manages the same size and class of property that you're buying, okay? You can't have a company that manages A-class properties manages C-class property. I had that happen with an asset that I had in Shreveport. It was a freaking nightmare, okay? Also, they have to have a property management, their office or a regional manager has to live in that or near that area. Also, they have to have embraced technology. Now, I've got a book on this. If you're going to hire a third-party property management company, it's at Rod's links. Okay, there it is. How to hire, and it's at Rod's links. It's free. It's probably the best book on this topic, period. And it's free, so the price is right. So get that. It's at Rod's links again. But you want to make sure that that they've also embraced technology. There are still some digital dinosaurs in the property management space. And, you know, I used to say, you know, most people's that lease properties, 50% of them are on their phones. It's pretty much 100% now. So if they have not embraced technology and they don't have a good mobile website where you can literally go and tour the property, you can apply online, all that stuff, they're a digital dinosaur and you don't want to work with them. So this is property management companies, but this is part of your outside team, okay? Commercial real estate brokers. Commercial real estate brokers can make you wealthy, okay? But you want brokers that work full-time in multifamily. You want brokers that specialize in the type and size of apartments that you're targeting. And sometimes if you're brand new, talk to the new brokers, okay? They'll be more interested in talking to you as a newbie, okay? And let them know you're fairly new. It's okay. But the key is to build deep relationships with brokers because they can freaking make you wealthy, okay? I can't tell you, you know, the incredible deals we've gotten because of relationships that we've set up with brokers. By the way, if you get tired, you're dehydrated, drink some water. You need a good real estate attorney, okay? Now, when I say real estate attorney, you want one that specializes in commercial real estate, knows how to review contracts. They know how to, you should always, by the way, always have your contracts reviewed. I have written thousands of contracts in my life, mostly single family and small multifamily. And I know legalese fairly well. Okay, I owned a litigation support company. I know I've hired attorneys, I've hired paralegals, but I would never review my own multifamily contract or write my own larger multifamily contract. You always have an attorney that does it. And that real estate attorney will also review your financial documents, the loan documents. Very important that you have that done as well. Okay, so again, contracts attorney, have contracts reviewed every time. And very nice, it's good to have the same attorney for both contracts and SEC. And on one of these Saturday sessions, I will bring in my SEC attorney to work with you. He's really good. His name's Merrill, and I've used him for multiple deals. But and he is both SEC attorney and contracts attorney. Okay, but you can have different ones if you want. I like to use one that does both. And so, but you need this. This is the outside team. Go ahead.
Got one on TikTok. He says, have about 70 single-family homes now, struggling to find multifamily deals that cash flow enough.
Right.
And see in South Carolina.
Right. Hey, South Carolina. So you've got 70 single-family homes. Congratulations. That's fantastic. You're having a tough time finding deals. Just wait. The deals are here. They're coming. Okay. There's a lot of operators in trouble. I'm going to talk about different strategies for finding deals today. So hang with me. Okay. Lots of different strategies. I'm positive some you have not heard of before. We're going to get into that in just a little bit. So stay with me. Okay. And better yet, sign up for my freaking boot camp. Okay. And I'll give you that link in a minute. It's $47. It's 2 days of training. I don't sell anything there, so there's no excuses. And you get like $13,000 worth of bonuses. And these aren't BS bonuses. They're incredibly valuable. So you'll see. I'll have a slide on that in a few minutes. Okay. So commercial loan brokers. Okay. Now that should say commercial loan brokers. My mistake. But they will help you determine what the best will you remind me, I need to fix this slide. I don't know what slide number it is, but I need to fix the loan broker slide. So it should say commercial loan brokers. But so for small apartments and complexes, you're going to go to local or regional banks. If the loan's over $1 million, you'll probably go to Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac. But again, a loan broker will help you do that, and that's your exterior team. Okay, more people on your exterior team or outside team would be an accountant that understands cost segregation and bonus depreciation. Now, this is the reason real estate's so freaking amazing, is because you can depreciate it and you can do what's called cost segregation. Typically, depreciation is 20 years. You're depreciating everything above the ground. Well, with cost segregation, you accelerate that and you can get as much as 70% write-off year one. It's incredible. Okay, with cost segregation. So you want an accountant that can help with that. They can also help with projections. Although my deal evaluator software that you get for free if you do my $47 freaking boot camp does all that. Okay, you need an insurance broker that can write insurance anywhere in the U.S. and you need a property inspector. You will always, always, always have your property inspected. Okay. I've looked at thousands of properties and I would never buy a property without having it inspected by a general contractor or a property inspector. Okay. Now let's talk about the interior team, and that's creating a partnership. Okay. Here's some of the advantages of creating a partnership, and you are going to very likely do partnerships as you get into this business. First of all, you divide responsibilities, okay? Because there are lots of hats you can wear in this business. You can be the one that finds the deals. You can be the one that evaluates the deals if you're analytical. You could be the one that does investor relations and raises money. You could be the one that manages the property, the asset after you buy it. You manage the property management company. Lots of different things. You want to make sure you have complementary skill sets. Not everybody doing the same thing. So again, these are the different things. Help you with investors, help you with financing, and really there's strength in numbers. Okay, so that's the advantage of creating a partnership. But here's the thing. A partnership is like a marriage. Easy to get into and hard to get out of. Ask me how I know, okay? I'm in one right now that I'm unfortunately going to have to sue this guy. You know, he's a real piece of you know what. But and I teach this stuff, and I got sucked into this. But again, you want to make sure that that you do all your homework up front. I've got another free resource on this. It's the questions you ask before you get in a partnership, okay? It's at rodslinks.com. It's a free book, and it's got all the questions you should ask before you get caught up in the emotion of a partnership, okay? And so, you know, questions like, how will we hire employees? What kind of liability insurance are we going to have? What are our working hours? Just all kinds of questions that you want to ask. So these are the difficult questions you ask up front. You don't get caught up in the emotion. You ask these questions. They're in this book. It's at Rod's. In fact, let me put it on the screen here. Rodslinks.com. Okay. Now don't go there and study that now. You don't want to miss anything here. But that's where this book is and other books. That's where my bootcamp site is. You can check that out for my virtual bootcamp that's coming up in January this month. And my social media is there. My goal setting workshop is there. So there's a ton of free stuff there for you. It's all free. Except the boot camp, you're going to pay 47 bucks for. But again, you get $13,000 worth of freaking bonuses. And they are real bonuses. They're not bullshit. Okay. So where was I? So anyway, you want to have these difficult conversations up front. You know, and you ask, yeah, what happens if somebody dies? What happens if things don't work out? How the decision's handled? What if we don't agree on something? Are there any salaries? Who's doing what? These are the kind of things you got to go. Here's the big one. Trust your freaking gut, okay? Your brain is incredibly powerful, okay? It can pick up on these micro nuances that you're not consciously aware of, okay? If something doesn't feel right, it isn't right, okay? Trust it. Every time I've ignored it, I've regretted it, okay? So if something doesn't feel right, go deeper, okay? Very, very important. But this is, what you do when you're going to get into a partnership. So now let's talk about the different ways that you raise money for a deal. You can do a joint venture or you can do a syndication. Now, a joint venture is everybody is actively involved, okay? So I don't want to see a joint venture with 10 people because I'm not gonna buy it. The most you would probably have on a joint venture would be 5 or 6, okay? Because everybody's got to do something. Now, if you raise money from people and they're not actively involved, you have to do a syndication, okay? Don't be afraid of it. It's just stroking a check to an attorney will help you dot the I's and cross the T's. It's not a big deal. Once you do your first one, you'll be like, is that all it was? Okay. But it's governed by the SEC. It's an exemption to the SEC, but you just got to do it right. Okay. And you got a question? Okay.
We have a question from Zach. He says,
Zach.
We have a 9-unit. What is the best way to determine refi or trade up the property?
So Zach, you've got a 9-unit. What's the best way to determine if you want to refi or trade up the property? Well, listen, here's the thing, Zach. I wouldn't sell it. If it's cash flowing, I wouldn't refi it or trade it up. What I would do is get your ass to my boot camp and I'll teach you how to raise money and go out there and buy more deals. Keep that one. I regret if it's a nice asset. Now, if it's in a shitty area or it's a problem property, different story. But if you like it, it's cash flowing, leave it alone. I don't know about you, Zach, but I'll take 10, 20, 30, 40, 50% of something over 100% of nothing any day. Okay. And that's what I teach you. I teach you how to raise that money. So, that's what you want to learn because then you can go out there and get scale. Okay. That's how you do it. You do it through joint ventures, syndication. We're on the right slide here for that. Okay. So I hope that helps, Zach. Okay. Now, remember we talked about equity. How equity is the amount of money that gets put into a deal other than the loan. So equity would be the down payment, the upfront monies for closing, the capital expenditures for fixing the property up, operating expenses. I always raise money for operating expenses. So that's the equity. And the equity is what you're going to raise in a joint venture or a syndication. Okay? That's what you raise. And so typically the equity investors will get a piece of the equity in the deal. Okay? They'll get their proportionate share of cash flow and profits and write-offs as well from the deal. And you determine the split between you and your equity partners, okay? And it's determined by how good the deal is. And on one of these Saturday sessions, I'll show you a sample deal package. Not today, but I'll show you a sample deal package that will break all this stuff out for you. But typically, an equity investor will stay in the deal if it's refinanced, and that's our model. It's the Burr method. Go ahead. The Burr method is buy. You probably heard this on Bigger Pockets. I'm blocking you. There we go. Burr. And I do this with big multifamily. You buy, you renovate, you refinance, and you repeat. That's the Burr method. Okay, that's simple. Okay, and so your equity investors that are in the deal, when you refinance, they get their money back, and then their returns are infinity because they don't have any money in it anymore. It's a fantastic deal for them. So that's equity investors. Now, what are some funding sources for equity? I tell my students, if they hold still long enough, they need to know what it is you do, okay? And so obviously friends and family, I have purchased property with credit cards, okay? It's funny. I get people complaining about these interest rates today, 7, 8, 9%, which sucks if if you had an adjustable rate loan that was originally 3%. But I will tell you, when I got into this business, when I was 18, the interest rates were 18%, okay? No lie. And I was putting deals on credit cards because the numbers still made sense. I remember when the interest rates went down to 7%, we're like, holy shit, it's 7% interest. It was like, that was a fantastic deal, just to give you some context, okay? But anyway, you can raise money through equity lines of credit. You can use self-directed IRAs. You can get money from investors, hard money, which is like in the single family space where someone will loan you money at a high interest rate for a short term. You got a question?
Someone asks, if you had 400K in the bank,
Right?
cash flow, how would you triple it?
If you have 400K in the bank cash flow, well, first of all, if it's in the bank, it's not cash flow, and maybe it's from cash flow. How would you triple it? Buy more real estate. Buy more real estate that cash flows. Okay, and again, you don't have to use your own money to buy this real estate. I told you, you can do a syndication, joint venture. I can tell you, I've got students that have joint venture deals where they don't have a dime in the deal. They end up with 30, 40, 50% of the deal. They do the work. When I was in my 20s, I bought millions of dollars worth of property, 50-50 with partners. They put up the money, they actually signed on the debt, and we split the profit. Everybody was happy. Okay, I didn't put my own money in. There you go. That's how you do it. So now you could use that money to go buy other property for sure, but I wouldn't. I would keep your powder dry because I truly believe incredible opportunities coming. It's upon us. I think this year is going to be incredible for deals. So I'd keep your powder dry and raise the money. You got another question?
AC asks,
AC.
how does it make sense financially to do a syndication on small apartments, 5 to 30
Okay.
units?
Question is, how does it make sense to do a syndication on small apartments? You probably wouldn't on 5 units, buddy. Okay, you would do typically a syndication. Your loan is going to be at least $1 million. Okay, now maybe that's a 5 unit. Okay, but the SEC attorney is going to cost about $15,000. But if that's the only way you can buy it, you raise the money. That's the best 15 grand you'll ever spend. So, there you go. You just have to decide based on the numbers of the deal if it makes sense to syndicate. And again, with my Bootcamp, the $47 ticket I'm talking about, you get my deal evaluator software. That's one of the bonuses. So anyway, I'll get to that in a minute. You can also have a debt investor. Now we talked about equity investor. A debt investor is just loaning you the money and they don't get equity. They're like a bank. Now it's harder to raise debt, but you can do it. And once you refinance, they're out of the deal. Okay, so they get paid in full out of a refinance or sale, but people raise money in debt as well. So how do you find partners and investors? Again, everywhere people meet. Okay, you can go to your church, your sporting events, soccer moms or soccer fields, health clubs. I met a huge investor. We had lockers next to each other, and was in this fancy health club in Denver, and we had little brass name tags with lockers there. And I met an investor there, right next to me. Meetup groups, fantastic one. You can create your own meetup group. You can do real estate investing presentations. You go to real estate investor association meetings, RIA meetings, networking events. I mean, you name it. Anywhere people gather, you can find investors and partners. You just have to talk shop. You want to get the question, what do you do? You want to ask them what they do. So they ask you, what do you do? You got another question?
When is the boot camp?
Boot camp is January. Yeah, I should know that. Oh, it's January. It's a weekend, the last weekend or the second to last weekend of this month. Can you text Matt and ask him? Text Matt and ask him. I should know this. Sorry. Anyway, but it's going to be 2 full days of training. I don't sell anything. It's a Saturday and a Sunday, and there'll be like $3 billion represented by the panelists to answer your questions. We go through every part of this business literally for 16 hours, and the bonuses are like $13,000. You'll see here in a minute. Okay. Now, you got to have an elevator pitch. Remember, they say, what do you want them to ask you what you do? And you say, listen, I invest in multifamily properties. There's incredible deals right now because the interest rates. By the way, I'm always looking for partners. Do you know anybody? Right? So here's some other examples. I'm investing in multifamily properties, markets that are economically growing. We're looking for properties we can add value to and appreciate. Who do you know might be interested in partnering with me? Or we help people like you invest in multifamily properties, or we put together groups of investors who invest in multifamily properties. It's an elevator pitch, something you'd say as you're going down an elevator. Go ahead.
The boot camp is January 24th and 25th.
So the boot camp is January 24th and 25th. It's Saturday and Sunday. And bring your A game, because I go hard, and you will drink through a fire hose. But I've never had a complaint other than the breaks are too short. In fact, if you come and on Monday you didn't love it, I'll give you your $47 back, okay? I mean, I don't mean like it, I mean love it. People rave about it. Okay. So when you're talking to investors, you got to find out what their goals are, okay? If they need their money back in 6 months, this is not going to work for them because these are long-term investments, typically 5 to 7 years, right? So when do they need their capital back? Pay attention to their personality. If they're an ass, do not do business with them because I can tell you, managing your investors can be harder than managing your property if they're a pain. Okay, and if they're interested, you have them fill out a questionnaire and you build up a list. Now, one of the bonuses in my boot camp is my social media, crushing it in social media course, where you can do social media. And now with AI, it's even more extraordinary, and you can build investor lists. So when you're ready to find a deal, it's easy to raise the money. Okay, now once you have a relationship with an investor, you got to nurture that relationship. You call them, you email them, you send them newsletters. You know, send them articles about where you're investing. You do it like an alert on on your browser to let you know anytime an article pops up, and you send it to them. Hey, this is why we like St. Louis or Kansas City or whatever. You have group meetings. You do PowerPoint presentations, but you send them gifts. In fact, here's a gift right here. I don't know if you can see this, but this thing says Cree Capital. That's the name of my acquisition company. It's a Yeti cup. These cups are fantastic. It's got my protein drink in it. This is a gift we give investors. This gives you an idea. But you want to nurture the relationships. You keep them warm. You know, I get the question all the time, should I find the deal first or should I raise the money first? Yes, you do them both at the same time, okay? We have purchased fantastic deals where they couldn't raise the money in time and we had to step in and take over their contract to buy them. So you do them both at the same time. Now, you're going to brand yourself, okay? Once you get into this business, you're going to basically hang your shingle, they call it. Back in the day, in the 1800s, you'd get a shingle off the roof, you'd paint your name on it, and you'd hang it. Okay, so that's what you're doing. So you got to pick a company name. Now, most company names end in holdings, group, equity, capital, investments, real estate, partners, whatever. Ours is CRE Equity Capital, meaning commercial real estate equity capital, okay? And so that was our name. You got to check the name with the Secretary of State, make sure nobody else has got it. One of my warriors got a name that someone else had, and he got a cease and desist letter, and he had to change it. So check the name. But actually, you check it on the trademark search at uspto.gov. So you do that, you check it to Secretary of State, and then you go to GoDaddy and find a domain name. I didn't want to do creequitycapital.com. It's way too long. So we got Cree Capital. Our website is creecapital.com. You get a logo, you create a website, you get business cards. Now, don't hit me up and say, what do you think of this logo? Do not major in minor things, okay? Focus on calling brokers and sellers and investors. Focus on income generating activity, not your freaking logo. And you know who you are. Don't get caught up in the minutia, okay? And I love you. This, analytical, introverted people will get caught up in the minutia, and you're some of the most successful people in this business. But you got to go out and do the income generating activity, okay? You got to have 5 seconds of courage. But then you can create reach. I host the largest real estate podcast in the world for this, just because I was consistent and I added value. And again, this is what I talk about in that bonus course. I think it's, I'm guessing, but I think it's probably about a 12 module course that you get as one of the bonuses with my bootcamp in crushing it in social media. Go ahead.
So Laura just asked,
Laura.
Are bonuses different today versus what you offered around late November?
Yes, they are much more. Yes, Laura, the bonuses are much more right now. I'm doing a very big special for the end of the year. You'll see, and I'm about to get to them. I'm not sure how many more slides they are before I get to them, but you'll see they're pretty extraordinary. Okay, so you need to create reach, and with social media, my God, you live in the greatest time on earth. I interview people that had to start with meetup groups, a real estate investor association, and they raised hundreds of millions of dollars just with those groups. But now with Facebook and LinkedIn and Instagram and X, Twitter, I've got warriors, coaching students that have podcasts, probably a few dozen podcasts, award-winning, some of them. So a YouTube channel. There's so many things you can do now to create reach, and you don't need tens of thousands of followers like I have. I mean, if you have a few hundred people that you're adding value to, and you're consistent with. Those are the two things. You got to add value and you got to be consistent. And with AI, it's so freaking easy right now. So if you're adding value and being consistent, once you find a deal and you've built a relationship with these people just by adding value to them, it's much, much easier to raise money. Okay. So there's the Cree Capital website. Don't go look at it now because you'll miss something, but it shows our assets. And this is why you want to partner with somebody that's already done this, okay? Because they'll have a track record and you can use their track record to go build relationships. So, go to your local meetup groups or, come to my boot camp, and meet people that are doing this. And then you can use the we word. We own 300 units, 500 units, 1,000 units, and you have instant credibility, if you align with someone like us to bring us a deal or bring us money, okay? So this is the website. It talks about my foundation and other things, but this is an example of my website. And I do videos on there. I'm not going to get into all that right now, but you could check it out later. But write it down to check it out later. CREEcapital.com. You'll learn a lot from it. You got a question?
Yes.
Okay.
So I want to ask, Rod, I'm starting a woman. I'm a starting woman in multifamily. Oh, okay, got you.
Okay.
So basically, she is starting a woman in multifamily education group on school. Any advice? So
You're starting okay, I would ping me offline for that. If you're starting your own multifamily investment group on school, I'm actually building a school site myself. It's SKOOL. It's almost done, and congratulations. In my Warrior Coaching program, we've got a ton of women, very, very successful women, single moms that are killing it. That's in my coaching program, my Warrior program. But congratulations. Just ping me offline. I'll help you with that. Okay. So again, we've got some testimonials from investors on our website. That's just our website. All right. Now let's get into picking an area. Okay. This is a funny story. So we're going to talk about finding deals as well. I think, hang on, is that what I get into next? Give me a second here. Yeah. Okay. We're going to talk about different types of properties and finding deals. So this is a picture of I did a mailer in my area. So I live in Sarasota. I'm in Miami right now, my studio in Miami, but I have a bigger studio in Sarasota. But I did a mailer there of 40 unit properties, or like 20 to 40 unit properties. And I got quite a few responses, and we're going to talk about how to do that here in a minute. But one of the responses was somebody that said, yeah, I got this 40 unit that I don't want to sell, but I got a triplex. You can just take over the payments. I'm like, I don't want a triplex, but I was so intrigued that I went up and looked at it. Okay. It was an hour drive, and I brought my ex-wife with me and brought someone else. I forgot who else I brought. But so when I tell you that it looked like this, I'm not exaggerating. This isn't it actually, but it looked like this. And it's just a funny story. I'm not exaggerating. This is about what the interior looked like. I didn't take pictures, but it looked that bad. Okay. This bad. And I've seen this more than once in properties we own as well. And I remember going up to the door, and there was a dog chained outside. And I literally walked in like 2 feet. And I'm like, screw this. And I left, and I thought fleas. And sure as shit, I had fleas from my knees all the way down to my shoes. I get to the car. I had brand new shoes on. I took them off. I left them right there on the side of the road. Yeah, anyways, it's my flea story. It's kind of crazy, but yeah, you're going to get that. Look at this MacGyver refrigerator. I just found some funny pictures to throw in here. But anyway, you're going to see all kinds of crazy stuff when you become a landlord. It's hilarious. But here's the thing. The beautiful thing about real estate is the check fixes pretty much everything, okay? So, it's a fun business, very fun business. So let's talk about classifications of properties, okay? So you got Class A. Class A is the brand new stuff, right? Premier luxury, most expensive. Most modern. It's got the most amenities, high quality construction. It's energy efficient, excellent locations, lots of amenities, pools, gym, tech packages, just, beautiful. That's the Class A stuff, okay? Then there's Class B. That's middle income. Lots of variances in this, and typically built in the last 15 to 30 years. Good quality construction. A little bit of deferred maintenance, not bad. Very good functionally. Now, what do I mean by functionally? There's something called functional obsolescence. Functional obsolescence is stuff that's very expensive to fix, like a low ceiling, small windows, small rooms. That's functional obsolescence. But you're good functionally on a Class B property. Good landscaping, stable neighborhood, have amenities, typically quality construction. So that's a Class B property. Class C property is older, okay? Typically 30 to 50 years old. average to low functionality. You're going to get the smaller rooms. Like my daughter's triplex that she bought. Definitely a C property, and it's got some functional problems. Windows are small, ceilings are a bit low. There's some functional issues. Very often outdated. But you get good rental rates. It can be in a stable area, it can be in a declining area. You're going to see less amenities for sure. Average vacancy rate, average appreciation. But then you've got D. Now, D is the freaking hood, okay? You do not want to do D properties. Ask me how I know. I've purchased properties where I bought a whole block in Denver, actually Aurora, Colorado, where the drugs were so bad. The one unit I had a hole cut in the front door to pass the crack through. The police put concrete blocks at the end of the street to slow down the drug traffic. Not stop it, just slow it down. I had people killed in it, around it, behind it. You don't need that brain damage, guys. So trust me. Now, some of you will ignore me and buy D-class properties because the cash flow looks good. But you don't have an exit strategy because the only one that'll buy it is another bottom feeder. Trust me, you don't want it. They're the worst properties. They have extreme functional obsolescence, bad locations, very old, roughest part of town, poor construction. It's not worth the brain damage, okay? I like to get C properties in B areas where I can bring it from a C to a B, or B properties in A areas where I can bring it from a B to an A. That's what I like to look for, okay? Now, selecting your initial markets to evaluate. Do you have a question?
Laura asked, "Can I cancel my previous order and purchase?"
Laura can ping me later. I don't want to take up time for the group on that. Okay, Laura, I got you. Just DM me. Selecting your initial markets to evaluate. Okay, so I'm going to tell you to consider these 4 markets initially, okay? Now, obviously, your backyard. Now, I consider your backyard anywhere within a 2-hour drive. So I live in Sarasota, Florida, which is by Tampa. So for me, that would be Orlando, that would be Fort Myers, that would be Naples, that would be Ocala, Florida, okay? So 2-hour drive in any direction. Why? Because you can manage that property with day travel. You can drive out there in the morning, check out the property, and be home in time for dinner. So that's your backyard, okay? That would be option number 1. Option number 2 would be a place you know well or grew up. I grew up in Denver. I lived in Denver for 30 years. I owned 500 houses in Denver at one time. Okay, I can still name every street between Kipling on the west side and Havana on the east side, and because they're alphabetical. I still know the streets. And so that I know that well. So pick an area, maybe you grew up, you went to school there. Third option would be a place where you have boots on the ground. You got friends or family. Okay, that would be option 3 because they know what's going on there. They know businesses going in, going out. They got the ear to the ground. They can help you if you find a place. Or option 4 would be a place you enjoy visiting or might even want to retire. So those are the 4 options I would consider first. Now, if none of those make any sense for you, don't go from California to Boston or vice versa. There's enough low-hanging fruit closer to you that you don't have to go across the country. Okay? So, but these are the 4 I would absolutely consider first. If none of those apply, again, if you live in California, go to Idaho, go to Arizona. You live on the East Coast, the Carolinas, Ohio, Indiana, but don't go across the country. That's silly. Okay? Now, what do you look for in a market? You want to see 3 things growing, okay? Population, income, and jobs. Now, what do you think is the most important? Tell me in the chat what you think is the most important piece here that you're looking for in a market. Tell me what do you think the most important thing is. Let me know if any what the answers are. What do you think is the most important? Tell me. That's right, jobs. Great job. That's jobs, because jobs drive everything, okay? And so, some other considerations when you're looking at a market, you don't want any one-horse towns. What do I mean by that? Where there's one major employer, even if it's a military base, because if that horse gets sick or that horse loses town, you're screwed, right? Okay? So, got to multiple large employers. You want to make sure that the median home price is at least $150,000 and that you don't have more than 20% vacant housing. Now, yes, there are places that have more than 20% vacant housing, like Detroit, okay? And I wouldn't invest there, no way. Okay, so that's what you want to look for. So there's some other considerations when you're evaluating markets, okay? Now, I like to see at least a population of 100,000 or near a population of 100,000, okay? I like to make sure that it's got a main shopping hub area, that it's got a highway runs through it, and it's got an airport with at least one major carrier. These are some minimums that I like to see when I'm considering a market. Now, how do you figure this stuff out? These are some websites you can use. So if you want to take a second and write these down, these are websites you can go in and check demographics. There's census.gov, there's bestplaces.net, there's datausa.io, there's city-data.com, and you just go in there and play around. Put in your home address and see what's going on there. See what the demographics are. See what the population is. See what the median income is, what the median rents are. See what the crime looks like. You can check all sorts of things at these websites and just play around with it. Don't get intimidated by it. Have fun with it. Wallow in it. This is how you learn the business, by playing around with these sites. But this is how you're going to select a market to select to invest in, because you want to become an expert in whatever market you're going to invest in. Don't be all things to all people. You know, Napoleon Hill in his book Think and Grow Rich says, don't be a generalist, be a freaking specialist. By the way, I've given out, I'm not exaggerating, well over 10,000 copies of Think and Grow Rich, physical copies. No, true story. That's a book you should read several times a year. Okay, so those are the websites. Hopefully I give you enough time to write those down. By the way, you'll be able to go back. I think we'll have this on YouTube, but I'm going to be doing a version of this every Saturday. Okay. Okay. All right. Get us back on TikTok. So we're going to talk about finding deals next. Hang on one second, guys. I want to check something real quick. Just bear with me 1 second. Okay.
TikTok logged you out due to inactivity, but you're live.
Okay. All right. All right. Just get us back on there. All right. We'll have to figure that out. Okay. All right. So now let's talk about finding deals. So I know we had some questions about finding deals. So
somebody asked, or somebody just mentioned that they're between Raleigh and Myrtle Beach.
Okay. In North Carolina.
Yep. 2 hours each way.
Okay. What's the question?
How to find deals within that, I'm guessing, because you just mentioned that.
Okay. 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 I didn't see a question for you. The person that's in North Carolina. But we're going to talk about finding deals now. Okay. We're talking about finding deals, for God's sakes. Yeah, baby. Doesn't get any better than this. Okay. So here's the thing with finding deals. You have to put on your problem solver hat, because a lot of deals have what's called hair. Okay. And you know, they have issues with them. And so you put on your problem solver hat, your entrepreneur hat. You're not just an investor. Okay. And again, as an entrepreneur, when do you stop? When you're done. Not at 5 p.m., okay? And, you know, if you're willing to grind for a few years like most people won't, you can live the rest of your life like most people can't, okay? But you got to be a problem solver and an entrepreneur, not just an investor, okay? Now, you're going to build relationships, okay? Because as I've said previously, this business is a team sport. You're not going to do it alone. You shouldn't do it alone, okay? So you're going to need relationships with sellers and investors and bankers and lenders and brokers and, you know, service providers like painters and landscapers and you name it, insurance agents, property management companies. We talked about this previously because this is a relationship business. Now, what's the foundation of a successful business relationship? First of all, I mean, some of this is common sense, but I'm going to share it anyway. You got to build rapport. And what do I mean by rapport? You find commonality, you find shared interests. You know, women are great at this. Oh, I love your shoes, or I love your top. Men, not so much. Men, you know, how about those Broncos? But you got to find commonality, you build rapport, and then you create trust and respect and likability, and that's how you do a relationship. And I will tell you, I'll tell you something fascinating. I learned this with Tony Robbins. If you see two people that are in total rapport, talking to each other, they actually mirror each other. If one person goes like this, the other person will go like this. Their breathing syncs up. It's pretty fascinating. I'll tell you something else. Remember this, okay? When two people are in rapport, truly in rapport, the person that has the most confidence in the subject matter being discussed will always influence the other person. Okay, let me say that again. When two people are in rapport, the person that has the most confidence and certainty about the subject matter being discussed will always influence the other person. All right. We talked about what brokers, utilizing brokers. One good broker can make you wealthy, and you can go to the other ones to find referrals to other people for your team, bankers and service providers and insurance agents and so on and so forth. Okay. Now, how do you find brokers? You can go to what's called loopnet.com, okay, and search multifamily properties for sale. In fact, I've got a couple right here that I'm going to go through with you, okay? If I have time today, I'm pretty sure I will. So you go to loopnet.com, you find a broker that has several properties for sale, and you can also reach out to large real estate brokerage teams. Very often, the large companies like Berkadia, Marcus and Millichap, Newmark, Grubb and Ellis, CBRE, CB Richard Ellis, they will have teams in a market that work multifamily where there's a lead person and there's several other people. If you're brand new, you don't talk to the lead person, talk to people beneath them and you reach out to them and start a relationship. That's really what you're doing, is starting a relationship. Okay? Here's a script. I'm an investor out of whatever the city is. How are you today? I'm calling in regards to one of your LoopNet listings. It's Shady Oaks. Is that property still available? Great. I'd love to get some more information. Before you send that, I have a few quick questions. What's the story with this property? Why is it for sale? Okay. And then they answer and you say, interesting. Sounds like it has potential. Here's my contact info. Do you typically list properties similar to this one? My partner and I's criteria is, and again, we talked about investment criteria earlier this morning, and you're going to want that. And ideally, you send that to them, okay? And again, if you DM me, I'll send you our investment criteria for CREE Capital, and you can get an idea what that looks like. But my partner's looking for a property, and so feel free to send me anything similar, and I'll be sure to get back to you as soon as possible. Now, when they send you a property, do not be a black hole. Okay, respond to them. Give them a reason why the deal didn't make any sense. Very important. Okay, so this I got ahead of myself. So most people don't follow up. You want to let them know why the deal didn't work with specifics from your analysis, and this is what I teach you to do at my boot camp. By the way, the boot camp, to get the bonuses and everything, the website is, hang on, it's rodsbonuses.com, rods plural bonuses.com. I thought I'd come to that slide sooner. Let's go ahead and put it on the screen here, buddy. So if you want to go to that and see, it's rodsbonuses.com. Okay, and that's the $47 boot camp ticket price plus like literally $12,000, $13,000 with the bonuses. So rodsbonuses.com, it's a no-brainer. And there'll be a slide on it here in a little bit. You can go back. But I just want to mention it real quick because people were asking about it. And that's the one that's on January 24th and 25th? Yeah, okay. But it's, again, keep in touch with your broker. Respect their time, refresh their memory on what your investment criteria is. Do anything you can to set yourself apart because they get hit up a lot and a broker can make you wealthy. Don't forget that. Consistent communication. Email them every couple of weeks. Let them know you're still looking. Maintaining that relationship is super important. And any way you can set yourself apart, think about ways to do that, adding value to them if you can. I know one guy had a sports memorabilia shop, so he'd send them a signed football or signed baseball, from their team. But anything you can do to set yourself apart so you're remembered. But the goal is to get off-market deals that haven't hit the market yet. And that's how you, again, they can make you wealthy. Okay, now you can go to online websites to find deals. Okay, we're talking about finding deals now. LoopNet is a great place. People say LoopNet is what place where deals go to die. No, what you do is you look for what other people have missed. Can you increase income or decrease expenses? What expenses are high? Maybe the management's overpriced. That's very common. You'll see where the management fee has gone up over time. What are the rents at current market rent? This is why you want to be an expert in whatever market you're buying in. So you know what the market rents are. So you can instantly see if something's off with the property. When you become an expert in your market, you're going to smell if a deal's a good deal. And once you start using my deal analyzer software, which is one of the bonuses in my bootcamp, you'll be able to blow through an analysis and literally in 15 minutes to see if a deal warrants further, evaluation, or if you can get it off your desk. And that's what. Now, is that going to happen day one? No. The first deal you evaluate, it's going to suck. It's going to take you. It could take you hours, but that's okay. Every subsequent deal you evaluate, you'll get faster and faster and faster. That's how this works, guys. You know, so these are the things, rent's a current market rent. What's the area's vacancy percentage? Let's say the area is 95% occupied, 5% vacant, and you see a property that's 20% vacant. That's what we call a clue, right? The area is 5% vacant, the property is 20% vacant. That could be an incredible opportunity. Maybe horrible management. So that's the kind of stuff you want to be looking for. Okay. Like this was a 24 unit in Tampa, was in the Tampa Tribune. I'm sorry, it was on LoopNet. I'm sorry, this was a LoopNet example. So it was listed on LoopNet for 3 freaking years, okay? It was being sold at a 6 cap when that was actually not a great cap rate at that time. This was about 5-6 years ago. But there was no information. By the way, when there's no information on the website, get excited because everybody else gives up at that point. You dig deeper, and we dug deeper, and we found out that these sellers were in their 90s, okay? The rents were way below market. The expenses were high. They were being screwed by the landscaper, the maintenance, and the management company. And it was an incredible opportunity that had been overlooked by thousands of people. Let me tell you something. When you're willing to do what other people won't do, you'll always be a success. And I can't tell you how many examples of that I have. You got a question?
Yes. So, based on your experience, which deal structure works best when investing in Class C properties?
Well, based on my experience, what deal structure works best with investing in Class C properties? It's very deal specific, okay? It depends on where you're going to raise the money from. Do you have enough joint venture partners that have enough money to do it in a joint venture? Or do you need to raise money in a syndication? And it depends on, again, the type of property. The C property is not the final factor. Whoever asked that, you got to come to my boot camp because you'll understand all the different things you've got to take a look at before you can answer that question. It's not just the class of property, my friend. Okay. Okay, so here's some other online websites that you can check out. There's CityFeet, MAI Global, there's CIMLS. A lot of the big brokerage houses have their own websites. Marcus & Millichap, CBRE, Cushman & Wakefield, Coldwell Banker, Newmark, Grubb & Ellis. There's all sorts of big brokerage houses that have their own websites, and you just want to check them. You want to start looking there, right? But you're looking for low rents. You're looking at high expenses. You're looking at a seller that's motivated because they're pissed off because the listing hasn't sold, or expenses that are missing, or again, very little information. Everybody gives up when they see that. And again, if you're willing to do what other people won't, you'll always be a success. And you're checking the market's vacancy versus the property's vacancy rate. And, very often you'll see overpriced management. So this is the kind of stuff you're going to look at when you're evaluating a property. Now, property management companies, when you're evaluating property management companies, you're going to want to ask these following questions, okay? How often do they communicate with you? Typically, it should be monthly at maximum. We talk to our management companies weekly, okay? But they can help you find deals as well, guys, okay? They know a property, really well. They know when a seller is going to sell, okay? They know who wants to sell now. So this is finding deals. Property management companies can be a great source of deals for you. I can't tell you how many deals I've gotten and my students have gotten from property management companies. Because if they're managing a property, who do they want to take it over? Someone that they have a relationship with so they can keep the management, right? So they're definitely going to tell you about it if you've got a relationship with them. So once you pick a market, build relationships with property management companies. And I will tell you, again, I've got this book at rodslinks.com. It's how to hire a third-party property management company. It's free. It's probably the best resource out there about this topic. Get it. It's at rodslinks.com. rodslinks.com. Get it, and it'll have the questions you want to ask. And I'll tell you, I learn more from interviewing a property management company than just about anybody else I talk to when I'm looking at a market, because they know what's going on in that market, right? They know what's going on with that property. They know what's wrong with it, what's right with it. They can, so great source of deals. Auctions. Auctions are a great source. And I'm going to tell you, you're going to see a lot more properties going up for auction this year. Properties that are going to foreclosure. A lot of deals are going back to the bank because these operators got adjustable rate debt. And the interest rate went from 3% to 9%. I can tell you, we were talking to an operator, and lenders will make you pay a reserve payment to get ready for a payment that you're going to need to make to them to refinance the loan. And this guy's reserve payment went from 8,000 a month to 80,000 a month. There's just no way. Okay, so that's what's happening. So you're going to see properties going up for auction, and they will always list them significantly below the market value. This is to entice you to bid. But here's a couple things I want you to know. Okay, sometimes people will put properties up for auction to hide defects. Okay, and you want to be very, very careful with that. And because the properties are sold as is, and so they can hide defects. There's no contingencies. So if you put up a deposit to bid on an auction and you're successful, it's your deal. If you back out, you lose that deposit. So you want to be very careful, because when you're looking at a property from a broker, you will get a lot of information from them, but not enough. You'll typically get some financial information, but it's not everything you need. But when you look at an auction property, they'll give you everything they possibly can, because they know you've got a limited amount of time to look at it. And here's the thing: when you're doing your due diligence on an auction property, you're doing due diligence on a property you're not even sure you're going to get. So your due diligence is minimal compared to working with a broker. And so just make sure that you've got me or someone like me looking over your shoulder if you're going to do that. Very important, okay? And you got to have your money lined up. There's just a lot of factors with auctions, but they're a great place to learn, and I would recommend that you sign up on the different auction websites. So these are the different auction websites. I'll give you a minute. The biggest one's probably 10X, which is 10-x.com, but these are some other big ones. Williams Auction, Bill Fair is huge, JP King is huge, Hudson and Marshall is huge. So these are auction houses, even treasury.gov, which is the government auction website. But what's great about that, sign up for those, and you'll start getting these listings as these properties list. It's just a great place to learn, because again, they'll put everything including the kitchen sink in the package. You'll see appraisals, you see third-party reports like environmental reports and surveys and things like that to help you learn the business. But here's a tip: don't use your email address. Use an email address, a new email address, because they'll drive you crazy. But sign up for these and start looking at this stuff, and you'll learn the business more. You got a question?
All right, or ask us, how much time does a new operator get to put together a deal when it goes to auction?
You need to, Laura, if you're going to have an auction property, you better have your money lined up in advance, okay? You need to have your money lined up in advance. You need to have your financing lined up in advance, because there's no contingencies. Now, each auction house does their due diligence differently, but you need to. This is why you don't do this without some help, Laura. Okay, very important. Okay, but because you don't have a lot of time. But there's going to be some incredible deals going up for auction. You just have to be careful. I was trying to protect you and tell you some of the things you got to be careful of, because they can hide defects, because they know that the due diligence is going to be cursory at best. Very important. Okay. Direct mail. This is probably the most well-known marketing method. It can be very effective. It's the best way to get mom and pop deals, and it's the most successful way for finding deals yourself. Now, direct mail, the key with direct mail is you got to get them when they're motivated, okay? Maybe they just inherited the property. There's a divorce. They're tired. They're an out-of-state owner. They're in poor health. They want to retire. They got management problems. You got to get them when they're motivated. Now, direct mail can be incredibly effective. Now, you can buy your list for direct mail, and these are credible list sources. Now, there are nefarious list sources as well. These are all credible, okay? And you want to use a credible one if you're going to buy the list, because some of these list sources will resell the list time and time again, and they're just crap. So you want to use one of these, okay? I'll give you a second if you want to write a couple of those down. First Am, listsource.com, dunhills.com, dmdatabases.com, experian.com, usleadlist.com. These are all good companies, okay? But you can buy your list, okay? Now you can also build your own list. You go to the county assessor's website, And you can go to what's called NETR Online, which is all the county websites on it, and you click on your county, and it'll and then you put in your criteria of what you're looking for. 5 to 30 units, 5 to 20 units. But again, you go to netronline.com, and that's where you can build your own list. But you're gonna decide what you're gonna search for. If it's small, residential multifamily like duplex, triplex, quads, or if you're going to go 5 to 10, 15 to 20, 20 and up. And each county will be a little different, but you do your search. And this is how I went and looked at that piece of shit about an hour drive from my house that had the fleas. I did I think, I don't know, 20 to 40 units because I own a property management company I have for decades in my backyard. I'm like, okay, let me play around with this. But I'm going to give you some ninja tricks for direct mail. Okay, so number one is most commercial real estate is owned in an entity, okay, an LLC, limited partnership, things like that. Now, if you mail it to the registered agent for the entity, where do you think that mail ends up? In the freaking trash. So one of the things you want to do is go to the Secretary of State's website, look up their articles of organization, get the names of the managing members and get their home addresses, and you mail them there, okay? Very important. Okay, and if you mail to an LLC attorney that's managed by an attorney, it's going to go in the trash, right? So you look up their names. You can skip trace them and even get phone numbers, but you mail them at their home address. So this is one way. Now you don't have to. By the way, you are not going to mail every single property in a market. I would suggest that you mail people that have owned at least 20 years. Why? Because they're retirees and they're ripe for seller financing. There's no better financing than seller financing. So I'd suggest you only mail people that have owned 20 years. Now, if the list is too small, then you go 10 years. But even in a big market like Tampa, you're only going to mail, a few hundred tops. So you can take the time to go to the Secretary of State, look the entity up that owns a property, and mail them at their home address. Now you could have a VA do this, okay? I had VAs do this, and I was paying them like $1.93 an hour. True story. In the Philippines, I had 6 people each at $1.93 an hour working 40 hours a week. So for under $12 an hour, I had 6 people working, and they were thrilled to get it. And I wasn't taking advantage of them, okay? And so it's probably a little more than that now. This was about 7 years ago. But the point is, you can have a VA do this work, okay? You don't have to do it yourself. Okay. Now, the letter on the direct mail should be printed. It should be 1 page, and you want to make sure you've got the owner's name and address at the top, and you've got the property address in the first paragraph. Very important. You want to enhance your response. Put a picture of you and your spouse or your kids or your family in there as well. That enhances the response. So, but these are the factors for direct mail, okay, that you're going to use. Then you could say things like, you need to purchase a property in 30 days. You could put that as a headline on the letter. Now, what's intriguing about that is they may think that you have to do a 1031 tax deferred exchange. So they may feel like they have you a little bit over a barrel and think they have some leverage on you if you use that headline. You could tell them you're going to save them a real estate commission for sure. You could tell them you're going to save them thousands in taxes. How do you do that? By giving them seller financing, okay? You could say, you really love whatever the town is and you want to buy there, whatever. These are the different headlines you can use for your letters, okay? But you want to give them multiple ways to reach back out to you. Like when I did this, I had a website, a 1-page website. I think it was called like thekleiffamily.com. I had a picture of me and my spouse there, and it had a contact us form. It had a phone number there. It had an email there. Now, here's a ninja trick. Put a self-addressed stamped card in the letter. Now, yes, this is going to increase your mail costs. But see, if you're dealing with retirees, their initial primary form of communication was letters. And you give them a self-addressed stamped card that asks, what's the property address, how many units, what are you asking for it? Incredibly effective. Now I'm going to tell you, the average response rate on direct mail is about 0.5%. Doing these things I just showed you, I got a 6 to 9% response rate. Yes, 6 to 9 responses out of every 100 letters. Unbelievable response rate, doing the things I just shared with you. Okay, here's an example of a letter. I'd like to talk to you about discuss an apartment building at. We're in the process of finding a building to buy in the next 30 days. Yours is an ideal candidate. We can save you hundreds of thousands in taxes and real estate commissions. We can often pay full market price, close quickly. Time's limited. We again make them think they've got you over a barrel. Need to acquire a property in the next 30 days. If you have any interest, please contact me. Look forward to talking to you. There you go. So there's an example. And here's the other thing. You're not going to just do this one time. If once you have your list done, you go to all that trouble to figure out what their home addresses are, you're going to want to mail them every couple of months, okay? And it's not a once and done thing. And the first letter could be a business envelope, like I say, with a self-addressed card. Next one could be an invitation envelope, a color invitation envelope. Those always get open. By the way, the envelope is always handwritten, okay? Um, and I lost my train of thought. Envelopes always handwritten. The third mail could be a postcard. Okay, so you change it up every time. So there you go. Yeah. Oh, okay. I already had a slide on this. And you handwrite all your envelopes. You could hire somebody from Craigslist to do that. You get a stay-at-home mom or a disabled veteran to do it. Companies will do it again. These are some companies that'll do it. Click to mail, ITI, direct mail, LOB. These are companies that'll. But you can always tell if it's been printed. I don't like the companies doing it. I like it actually handwritten with a stamp. Okay, with a regular stamp. But we mail every 3 months, and that's it. Just the repetition is the key. Okay, and I talked about this previously. The secret to success in this or any business is being willing to do what other people won't. And I can tell you, do I have examples in here? Yeah, driving for dollars. People drive for dollars for single family. Hardly anybody ever does it for multifamily. So you look, what does the property look like? Is it trashed? Boarded up windows, poor landscaping, knee-high landscaping, cars that are on blocks. And I've got some people I interviewed, some guys I interviewed when I first started my podcast. They had just bought a 50 unit by driving for dollars. And they found the owner through the owner's son on Facebook. Again, that's doing what other people aren't willing to do. And they just had a 49 unit under contract that they found by calling people on Craigslist that had for rent signs and saying, hey, I'm not interested in renting. Have you ever thought of selling? Now that's doing what other people won't do. And they have thousands of units now. So there you go. You can cold call after you send the letters. Okay, fantastic. And by the way, if you get my bootcamp ticket, you also get my document library, which I've spent tens of thousands of dollars on. You get my deal evaluation software and my document library. But again, if you're willing to do what other people won't do, and there's a script in that document library for cold calling, by the way. You can hire stay-at-home moms to do this for you, or stay-at-home people to do this for you. And they'll just call. You could hire a VA to do this for you and just cold call and say, hey, my boss needs to buy a property in the next 30 days. I know I'm calling you out of left field, but if you've ever thought of selling your property at XYZ Worthwhile Avenue, I'd love to set up a call with he or her to talk about it. It's that simple. That's the script. It's that simple. And it works. I actually have someone cold calling right now assisted living facilities, and he gets one about a day because I'm into senior housing as well. I'm not just doing multifamily. So cold calling works, guys. And this is a VA in Latin America doing this for him, Ricardo. Okay. Okay, these are the two guys I was just talking about. I forgot I had the slide on here. So these are the two guys I was just talking about. By the way, they are probably closer to 4,000 units now. This is very, very dated. I should get an update from them. I don't even think they're partners anymore. They split up, but these are the two guys that had the 50 unit and the 49 unit that I interviewed, gosh, 8-9 years ago. You got a question?
Yes, someone asked, what specifically did you do to make your response rate so high compared to what most see?
Well, what did I do to make my response rate so high? Is all the things I just said. Handwrite the envelope, use a stamp, the owner's name in the first, at the top, the property address in the first sentence, a picture of me and my family, multiple ways for them to contact us, self-addressed stamped envelope, and different mailing types every 3 months, postcard, invitation envelope, business envelope. You can even do what's called lumpy mail, where you put an eraser or something in the mail and it's lumpy. Those always get opened as well. But those are the things I did. Yeah, very simple. Okay, so these are some other ways to find deals. If you're let me give you ask you a question. If you're a retired old fart, okay, crusty old guy, owns a 20 unit, doesn't trust those fast talking brokers, Mama, I'm going to sell this place myself. Where are you going to advertise it? You're 80 years old. A freaking newspaper. That's all you know. You can't even spell the word internet, okay? Nobody looks there anymore except you because you now know, okay? So you put an alert in the newspaper that any multifamily pops up, you get an email. You can do that now. That's how you get mom and pop owners and smaller deals. We found a 19 unit in the Tampa Tribune and thousands of circulation. I don't even know, hundreds of thousands circulation. And only 2 people had called because nobody looks there. Okay. MLS, this is a ninja trick. This is a really good ninja trick. So if you, let's say you're somebody built or bought a 20, 30, 40 unit apartment complex, okay? 20 years ago. They bought a 20, 30, 40 unit apartment complex 20 years ago. But they bought a house through a residential agent. When they go to list that 20, 30, 40, 50 unit apartment complex, they're going to go to that residential agent who hasn't got a freaking clue how to market that property. They have no way, they don't know how to price it. They don't know where to put it. They don't know how to, any of that. You can get some fantastic deals that way. I can't tell you. My brother got a farm up in the Blue Ridge Mountains that way because it had been mismarketed. My buddy got a mobile home park, a $2 million mobile home park that way because it was in the residential MLS. So you talk to an agent or a broker that's a residential MLS agent. You have them set up an alert for any multifamily properties. You tell them, I'm going to let you write the contract and hang on. Yeah, any of these factors, properties that fit your requirements, and it can be foreclosures, HUD properties, bank owned, but if they hit the residential MLS, nobody's looking there for multifamily except you because you had them put in an alert for multifamily. Okay, fantastic ninja trick. Properties with code violations. When somebody's getting hassled by the city or the county because the grass is too high or it's vacant or there's broken down cars, they're going to get code violations. They are not a happy owner, okay? Again, you're looking for motivation. If you can get a list of people that have code violations and mail them, that is a motivated list. Another one is evictions. When someone is dealing with evictions and getting people out of their property, that's not a happy owner, okay? And so, in fact, if you're a sadistic, go to an eviction court sometime and watch the glee on the judge's face when he discovers an owner that didn't do their paperwork right and he makes them start all over again. You want to talk about a pissed off owner. So if you can get a list of people doing evictions, say, hey, listen, I know you're evicting some tenants right now. Have you ever thought of selling? Again, motivation, guys. You got to get them when they're motivated. I'll get people call me and say, hey, I'm trying to get this seller to sell. I'm like, you don't get a seller to sell. That's like pushing a rope. You got to get them when they're motivated. Okay? All right. Networking with probate attorneys. There are a lot of kids whose parents made their money in real estate that don't like real estate. They just want the cash. They want the moolah. And so talk to probate attorneys. They'll deal with estates where there's real estate, and it could be incredible deals. So just call and say, hey, listen, I buy real estate. If you get anything in this market, let me know. If you're dealing with an estate that's got property they need to sell. Buying from banks, guys, this is going to be bigger and bigger as we get into this tough economy. Okay, as these deals go south. Now, I know the economy is getting better, but there are a lot of deals that are in trouble that are not savable. Okay, and banks are going to be taking these properties back. And banks are not in the real estate management business. They need to unload the properties quickly, and they will very often finance you on the deal to get it off their books. So set up relationships with bankers. Now, if you're going to do a market that's outside of your area, call the banks and say, hey, do you do commercial lending? Okay, great. Do you deal with out-of-town investors? Yes or no? If it's no, then go to the next one. If it's yes, then say, who handles that? And then ultimately, you're going to want to go to that city if you don't live there, and you're going to meet with them. You're going to meet with brokers. You're going to meet with vendors. You're going to meet with property management companies. You got to go visit the city if you're going to invest in it at some point, okay, and meet these people and go have lunch with the banker. Get to know them. And I'm going to tell you, they can make you a lot of money, okay? They will finance these things sometimes with no money out of pocket, especially if they're repossessing this stuff. Be their go-to person, okay? I can't tell you how many examples I have of this in my students and people I've interviewed and even myself where I've bought from banks. Okay. Other ways to find deals, service companies. Painters and pool companies and landscapers know if somebody's going to sell because they're going to tell them, hey, we want this place looking great. It's going up for sale. Tell them, hey, if you know who's going to sell, I'll give you a finder's fee. Let me know. I've got students that have found great deals that way. Okay. Okay. What? Okay, this slide deck is jacked. Give me a second, guys. Oh, I screwed this up. Hang on a second. Where is my... Okay. I am going to blow through these slides real quick. Give me a second. This is a duplication. Bear with me one second, guys. It's the first time I'm doing this today. Yeah, this is just a duplicate. Okay. One second. Almost there. Good Lord. What is going on? This is just looping. Yeah, it's just looping. Okay, get me to the slide at the end as quickly as you can. Bear with me a second, guys. Yeah, it's just looping. Hang on one second, guys. That slide right there. Okay, so I'm gonna kind of wrap it today. This is my 2-day virtual boot camp. It's January 24th and 25th. It's basically 17, 18 hours of training. We go deep on finding deals, raising money, evaluating those deals, due diligence, financing, syndication, joint venture, property management. I don't sell anything there, and it's got over $10,000 worth of bonuses. It's 47 freaking dollars. So here's what you get with this, okay? You get my document library. It's worth $1,000. You get my no money down acquisition system. That's a presentation that I did, a really awesome one. You get my capital raising system on how to raise capital. You get my number one best-selling book, number one bestseller in 3 categories. And how do you get it? You get audio and the ebook of this. You get my Finding Deals course. You get my wait a minute. You get my content domination course, which is about social media. You get my weekly planning system. You get my deal analyzer software for 47 freaking dollars. Okay, and you get tickets to the event, my virtual boot camp. Tell me your excuse. Okay, I wanted to make this so ridiculously irresistible that you come and you join me and you'll freaking love it. I promise you'll love it. Go to rodsbonuses.com. It's 47 freaking dollars. There are no excuses. And it's January 24th and 25th. We start at 11 Eastern, so we don't kill people on the East Coast. We'll have 3 panels 1 to 3 panels each day. I think the second day we do 1 panel. First day, I think we do 3 panels to answer all your questions. It's live. It's a kick in the ass. And I spend time on mindset. There's a reason my students are so freaking successful. The first thing we do is goal setting on steroids. Again, how do you get anything if you don't know what it is? So you actually take action with what you learn. Okay? We spend time on mindset. Now it's drinking through a fire hose. Bring your A game. But there's no excuses. If you're serious about learning this business, you're not going to get what you need to get from my podcast completely. You should listen to my podcast because it'll help demystify some of the stuff we'll be covering there. But you got to dig deep and join me here at this event. I promise you'll be glad you came. If you don't love it, on Monday I'll give you your money back. And I don't mean like it, I mean freaking love it. So go to rodsbonuses.com and I'm going to do these trainings every Saturday. Really indefinitely now, unless I'm out of town or that weekend. Obviously, I won't be doing it then because I'll be doing the actual boot camp. But I'll be talking about different aspects of the business: syndication, financing, due diligence, things like that. I'm not going to kill myself every day doing this, but next Saturday I'll be doing this again. And but anyway, I hope you'll attend my boot camp. I promise you'll be glad you came if you did. And I'll see you next Saturday. Go ahead and shut everything down. Go ahead and do the phones.